Oh, hang on, I meant to time somebody out, not hide them. There we go. Ronald Sipple says Putin won't give in. Dan S. says, let's hope it ends. There's also this unconfirmed report I'm seeing on some Ukrainian sites. That a Ukrainian person like blew himself up when like Russians invaded his house. But I've seen it on a couple of, Union has it and another site had it, but I can't verify that at the moment. So if I see anything more reliable on it, I'll let you know. Let me go back. Kimberly McMillan says, no way is Putin quitting. Let me show you. This is very interesting. This is what. This is a thread by Jeff Selden. He is a reporter with VOA News. So there's I guess usually like every day, there's the Pentagon briefing that you see televised, and then there's like a background briefing that where a defense official will talk to reporters, but it's not on camera. So this is what happened today from a senior defense official. New, not a lot of specific changes or progress. Almost all of Russia's advances remain stalled, says a senior U.S. defense official. Russian forces still about 15 kilometers from Kyiv city center, slowly trying to flow in forces behind advanced elements. Convoy still assessed to be stuck. That's important. That's important if it's true, that it's just kind of stalled. Again, not a lot of specific changes or progress. Almost all of Russia's advances remain stalled. I'll show you what else the senior defense officials said. Chernihiv in the north, isolated, but Ukraine putting up stiff resistance, stalling Russian advances, per senior U.S. defense official. Ukraine keeping Russia's eastern advance at bay. Ukrainians still holding the town of Brovary outside Kyiv, per senior U.S. defense official. Kharkiv, northeast Ukraine. Russian forces on the outskirts, but no apparent progress on the ground by the Russians, per senior U.S. defense official. Says fighting there is still intense, and Russians using more long-range fighters. "50 to 60 Russian vehicles now moving towards Izium, bypassing Kharkiv," said senior U.S. defense official. Izium is going to be, here's Ukraine, here's Kharkiv. I have to look it up where it is. I don't know. Izium. Down here. Let's keep going with this. Mariupol, which is just in awful shape. It's a humanitarian disaster. Hundreds of thousands of people there have been over a week without power, without heat, without water, running very low or out of food. It's a humanitarian disaster going on there. It's still going on. There was one report I saw today that said like 160 people had, 160 people had gotten out or something like that? I have to check the report. Was it more people than that? 160 vehicles maybe? I gotta check.
Hundreds of thousands of people there.
But a relatively small number of people have managed to get out, I guess, today. But they've had several times where Russia said that you can evacuate people, and then Russia will fire on the convoy, on the evacuation routes. Or they've tried to bring in humanitarian aid, and Russia will fire, not let the humanitarian aid come in. Anyways, Mariupol remains isolated by the Russians. I believe the Mariupol local authorities say over 2,500 people have died there now. It's awful. It's horrific. Mariupol remains isolated by the Russians. Ukraine forces still putting up resistance. Per senior Russian movement towards Mykolaiv, another city that they've been trying to capture. They've not made any significant movement on Odessa, per official. Again, the big theme of today's update from the Pentagon in this briefing was not a lot of progress by Russian forces. The missile strike yesterday on an military base in western Ukraine, in Yavoriv, was an air-launched cruise missile strike, more than a couple dozen cruise missiles, versus a military base in Yavoriv, said senior U.S. defense official. It says missiles were launched from inside Russian airspace. Russia-China military aid. We're going to watch that very closely, very closely, said senior U.S. defense official. We have seen China basically give unspoken, tacit approval to what to what Russia is doing, per official, echoing comments by other U.S. officials that there would be consequences for Beijing. Oops, hang on a second here. U.S. was not involved in any training at that military base that was hit since Florida National Guard troops moved out weeks ago, said senior U.S. defense official, and no U.S. persons in an official government capacity were there, and those strikes will not impact aid deliveries to Ukraine. Okay, let me skip ahead here. No signs that Russia is bringing in forces from elsewhere in Russia into Ukraine, and we have not seen any attempt to replenish his stocks from elsewhere, says senior U.S. defense official. Since start of conflict, Moscow has launched over 900 missiles at Ukraine targets, but Russians still have a lot of capability left. They have an awful lot remaining, says senior U.S. defense official. Ukraine's use of Turkish drones still effective versus Russia, says senior U.S. defense official. We assess that Ukraine still has significant majority of their inventory of drones left. Ukraine forces have effectively struck at Russian logistic and sustainment capabilities, says senior U.S. defense official. They've been quite creative here, deliberately trying to impede and prevent the Russians' ability to sustain themselves. Comments by other U.S. officials that there would be consequences for Beijing. Also, no signs of Russia backing down or backing off in Ukraine. We want to see a ceasefire. We want to see the violence stop, says senior U.S. defense official. But what we're seeing is a very concerted Russian effort with ever more violence, long-range fires. Long-range fires are, long-range projectiles, or I don't know if a missile's projectile. Things like long-range artillery, missiles, that kind of thing. The Russians have still not achieved air superiority over all of Ukraine, says senior U.S. defense official. It shifts literally hour to hour. It is still contested airspace. They, Russia, certainly have more assets available to them, flying many more times per day. Clearly, the Ukrainians are causing Russian casualties, Russian casualties, both killed in action and wounded, says senior U.S. defense official. But official says no U.S. info on how many Russian units degraded or destroyed by Ukraine. Still no indications Belarus forces preparing to enter the war in Ukraine, says senior U.S. defense official. Okay, so that's a very interesting update today from a senior U.S. defense official. But again, really big, really important. Not a lot of specific changes or progress. Almost all of Russia's advances remain stalled. Convoy still assessed to be stuck. Russian forces still about 15 kilometers from Kyiv city center, says senior U.S. defense official. That's from Jeff Selden. Thank you, Stephen Lauzone, by the way. I appreciate it, Stephen. And Arizona Jumper. Thank you, Arizona Jumper. So my guess is I'm going to look at it next. I'm going to look at the Institute for the Study of War. They come out with a daily analysis of what's going on in the war. But I have to imagine they're going to talk about this stalling again. Yes, and as Shoket says, but civilians are still dying. What Russia's doing a lot of now is just, indiscriminately firing, indiscriminately, or in some cases it looks like, but certainly firing missiles, rockets, artillery at civilian areas and just causing more and more damage and killing and injuring more and more people. I read something yesterday that like 10% of, yes, it was from, Samantha Power had said yesterday that 10% of Ukrainians had been displaced. It's incredible. It's so bad. If I can find it here. Because it was like a couple million people. I've seen reported that there's 2.5 million refugees, people who left the country. But also she was saying that there were a couple million internally displaced people. I can't find that now, though. I thought it was her who said it. I might be wrong. Here's something here. Oh, where is that? That's old. That's old. I found an old story on it. I can't find it. I'll let you know if I can. But I mean, it's 44 million people who live in Ukraine. So if you have 4.4 million people who'd been displaced, that would be 10%. Benton Resch, our viewer, thinks that displaced people is going to be over 8 million. Patska says it's all Putin's got left now, firing from afar mercilessly. Daniel Phillips, our viewer, says the volatility of this situation is scary. If one missile lands in NATO territory, the U.S. and its allies will launch the kitchen sink. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Oh, I hadn't seen this yet. Thanks for sending this to me. I just had missed this. Our viewer Tuma Palm sent me this from Dimitri, who's with Financial Times. Hang on a second here. Oh, I thought I was following it. Hang on a second here. At Dimmy from Financial Times said, new China-Russia scoop. U.S. told allies that Russia requested 5 types of military gear from China, including surface-to-air missiles, also drones, armored vehicles, logistics vehicles, and intelligence-related equipment. U.S. did not provide underlying intelligence and cables to allies. That's interesting, if it's true. I wonder if they've updated their story on Financial Times about this. Here's the Financial Times story. U.S. tells allies China signaled openness to provide Russia with military support. I'm not going to get all into it. We talked about this a bunch earlier, so I don't want to get all into it again. But I just want to see if they've updated their story at all. Yeah, 2 officials familiar with the content of the cable said Washington had told allies Russia had asked China for 5 types of equipment, including surface-to-air missiles. The other categories were drones, intelligence-related equipment, armored vehicles, and vehicles used for logistics and support. The cables were not specific about the level of timing or of any assistance that may be provided to Moscow by Beijing. One of the officials said the U.S. had not provided allies with the intelligence underpinning its assessments. And again, the story is that the U.S. has told allies China signaled its willingness to provide military assistance after Russia requested equipment, including surface-to-air missiles, to support its invasion of Ukraine, according to officials familiar with American diplomatic cables on the exchange. Again, so we don't know that any of this has been provided or will be provided. I have a hard time believing China is going to overtly provide a large amount of military aid to Russia with all of the potential economic costs that holds for China. Eric Sayers, an Asia security expert at the American Enterprise Institute, said the list of equipment requested by Russia was shocking and speaks to Moscow's desperation. Evan Medeiros, a China expert at Georgetown University and former White House Asia advisor, said it would be deeply worrisome if China transferred weapons to Russia. It would be a game changer for global geopolitics, he said. We risk going back to the days of the Chinese-Soviet alliance of the 1950s. Ukraine could become the first proxy conflict in a new Cold War. Today, Jake Sullivan, U.S. National Security Advisor, met in Rome with China's top foreign policy official. China has portrayed itself as a neutral actor despite its increasingly close ties to Moscow. But Chinese media and diplomats have offered support for Russia's justification for the invasion and blamed the U.S. and NATO for the conflict. Chinese media have also repeated unsubstantiated Russian claims that the U.S. helped Ukraine build biological weapons labs. A claim that Russia has provided no good evidence for. Okay. Anyways, so something to keep an eye on. Again, I can't confirm those Financial Times reports. Thank you, by the way, Queen of the South. Very much appreciate your support. Queen of the South, thank you. Here's what I want to do. Give me 1 second here. Hang on one moment. Again, you can reach me at Lookner on Twitter. I really want to look at the Institute for the Study of War daily war analysis update. So we're going to do that next. But before we do that, I am going to take a 2-minute break. 2-minute break, coming right back in 2 minutes, and we'll continue our live coverage in 2 minutes. Okay, we're back. Thanks for your patience. Now, I want to check the Institute for the Study of War and see what they had to say in their daily update. We'll check their update out. Thanks, by the way, for the Facebook stars. Pam Georgia Carver, Brad Nicodemus, Earl Harris, Sincere Solo, Russell Spencer, Jocelyn Mealy, Todd Taylor. And also DeGaulle Gray, if I'm reading that right. DeGaulle Gray, thanks for your support. And also, thanks to for shouting out our moderators. I appreciate that. DeGaulle Gray. Okay. New campaign assessment from Institute for the Study of War. Here it is. Russian offensive campaign assessment. Russian forces made small territorial gains in Luhansk Oblast in eastern Ukraine on March 14th, but did not conduct any major attacks towards Kyiv or in northeastern Ukraine. Again. Russian forces continue to assemble reinforcements in attempt to improve logistical support in both the Kyiv and southern operational directions. Ongoing Russian efforts to replace combat losses with both Russian replacements and non-Russian sources, including Syrian fighters in Wagner Group, are unlikely to enable Russia to resume. Look at this. Are unlikely to enable Russia to resume major offensive operations within the coming week. Within the coming week. How about that? I got to post this. I'll post that after. Within the coming week. They don't think Russia's going to be able to resume major offensive operations within the coming week. Wow. Key takeaways. Russian forces conducted several limited attacks northwest of Kyiv on March 14th, unsuccessfully attempting to bridge the Irpin River. That's today. Russian forces did not conduct offensive operations east of Kyiv and continue to prioritize improving logistics and reinforcing combat units. The continued ability of Ukrainian forces to carry out successful local counterattacks around Kharkiv indicates Russian forces are unlikely to successfully bypass Kharkiv from the southeast to advance towards Dnipro and Zaporizhia in the near term. Russian and proxy forces continue to achieve slow but steady territorial gains in the Donetsk Oblast after initial failures in the first week after the Russian invasion. Ukrainian forces resumed Russian attacks from Kherson towards Mykolaiv and Kryvyi Rih on March 14th. Russia will likely deploy small units of Syrian fighters to Ukraine within the week and is confirmed to have deployed private military company forces. Russian and Belarusian forces increased their activity near the Ukrainian border in the last 24 hours in a likely effort to pin down Ukrainian forces, but likely do not have the capability to open a new access to advance into western Ukraine. Russia and China denied that Russia seeks military aid from China and claimed that Russia does not need additional military support to complete its objectives in Ukraine. So again, it just not much progress. Another assessment saying not much progress by Russia. A great deal of credit should go to the Ukrainian forces. I mean, look at this. Russian forces may not be able to concentrate the combat power necessary to resume major offensive operations toward Kyiv within the week, despite several operational pauses already to reconstitute forces. And then, if Russia, how long can the Russian forces just sit out there without making major progress? So two considerations. First of all, and this is, I follow a number of experts and read articles and podcasts and interviews and that kind of thing. So one thing I've read a number of experts talk about is morale, and that Russian forces, they're out in the field. They've been there for weeks or months. It's very cold. They're probably not eating good food, and many experts believe that most of the soldiers did not know that they were going to war, that they were not going to fight in Ukraine, that they thought they were doing exercises, and they certainly didn't expect to be there this long. So, as day after day after day goes by, do the morale issues get greater with the Russian forces? That's one thing to watch for. And also, how about the political situation back home? Every day that goes by, the sanctions, it's expected, this is like the expert opinion, that the sanctions will just keep getting, the effects of the sanctions will be worse and worse as time goes on in Russia. So, before this invasion, I showed you some analysis that said, multiple analysts that said that what Ukraine should try to do is drag this out. And the longer it goes, the more pressure there may be on Russia, on Putin, because of, for example, morale issues with the troops, political pressure at home. But how long can they just stay out there if they're not making significant progress? Paul Lee says those soldiers have no bed, not enough food, no showers or toilets. They must be ready to just go home. Roland Arthur says, and I believe many of the Russian soldiers just don't want to shoot Ukrainians. Day after day after day, even just, a number of the soldiers were on the border before the invasion, but the invasion is now, what, the 18th day? It's actually maybe the 19th day in Ukraine. Max Meck says, sit out there getting sniped in the cold. And then we don't know about logistical problems. There's been a lot of attacks on logistics, on supplies by Ukraine. How is that affecting the soldiers? But day after day after day. I'm going to paste this here. Actually, let me post their tweet. Can I find their, let me just get their tweet itself when they talk about this. It's only Monday, and they're saying they don't think there's going to be a major attack on Kyiv within the week. Some experts think that Russia won't have the forces to surround or take Kyiv at all. Oh, hold on a second. Look, I just saw this. The scene in Moscow outside the television station where police are holding and presumably interrogating Marina Ovsyannikova, the woman who protested against the war in Ukraine during a live state TV broadcast. No real crowd, but it is nearly 2 a.m. So there's officers outside that TV station. Oh, I guess there's some press out there. Is it press or officers? I'm seeing both. It looks like security forces and press. not many people. Here, let me just do this. I'm posting this. Russian forces may not be able to concentrate the combat power necessary to resume major offensive operations towards Kyiv within the week, says the Institute for the Study of War in their latest update. All right, I just posted that. I think that's a really big deal. Again, I showed you that a defense official, senior defense official, Pentagon official, told. I showed you the Jeff Selden post with that background briefing that was given today, where the defense officials said that Russians were were pretty much stalled out in the last day or so. How long can that keep going on for? How long will Putin accept this? Right? If day after day after day the front lines on the battlefield are not changing much, how long is Putin going to accept that for? Hey, thank you, Terry B. Ohio. I really appreciate that. Terry B. Ohio. Seems like a huge deal. I mean, to me, that's like a big headline. Hey, I need to eat my Cliff Bar because I'm hungry and I have to eat something, so... Hang on a second. So I apologize for eating my Cliff Bar, but I got to eat something. Pond says, each day the money just drains. War is an expensive business. Demon Slayer says, how long will Putin accept this without using nukes? Well, you know, what you really hope doesn't happen is that Putin decides to use weapons of mass destruction. But also I wonder if, you know, there's another option is that Russia would just decide to, you know, there's a question of whether, I think it's normal to ask, would Russia at this point try to like negotiate some settlement? But, I have something to show you about that. Supposedly Putin doesn't want to, I saw a report saying that Putin doesn't want to negotiate. I'll show you that. I had an article I saw last night. And again, I'm sorry to eat on the ear, but I got to do it. I do also want to mention real quick. Thank you, Rosemary Hill. I very much appreciate that, Rosemary Hill. Thank you. Sometimes people ask me and they say, hey, do you know anywhere to donate for the people in Ukraine? And I talked about this yesterday. I've done a couple different donation things myself, but I found a place that I like giving to, which is Global Giving. Global Giving is a charity organization where they find like local organizations to work with, and when there's like a crisis, they'll set up like a fund. So they have one for you. I've given to them in other cases before, with other disasters. So they have a Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund that they've raised $13 million for. They have a very good rating on the site Charity Navigator. You can look it up. And so again, they're like a middle person where they find organizations that they believe will be helpful, and they collect money and then pass it along to those organizations. So if you're looking for a place, You might want to research this one. Again, I have used them to donate for several different, disaster kind of things. But I found this a couple days ago. I didn't realize they had one for a Ukraine fund. So I gave a donation to them, if you're looking. But you can go there and read about it. This is the article I wanted to show you. Sorry, just eating my Cliff Bar. So this article talks about how supposedly Putin does not want to negotiate. Like when the Ukrainians and Russians have these negotiation meetings, they can agree on whatever they want, but then the Russian negotiators got to go back to Putin and say, hey, do you sign off on this? And if he just says no, well, then it doesn't work. All right, I'm almost done with my Cliff Bar. One more moment. All right, my last bite. Okay. I just finished. Okay, this is from the New York Times from yesterday. The U.S. accurately predicted the start of the war in Ukraine, sounding the alarm that invasion was imminent despite Moscow's denials and Europe's skepticism. Predicting how it might end is proving far more difficult. There are 3 separate back-channel efforts underway to start negotiations. But so far, all have hit the stone wall of President Putin's refusal to engage in any serious negotiation. Again, President Putin's refusal to engage in any serious negotiation. At the Pentagon, there are models of a slogging conflict that brings more needless death and destruction to a nascent, is it nascent? European democracy. It means like early. It's either nascent or nascent. There are models involve a slogging conflict at the Pentagon. Also, there's other models in which Mr. Putin settles for what some believe was his original objective, seizing a broad swath of the south and east, connecting Russia by land to Crimea, which he annexed in 2014. And there's a more terrifying endgame in which NATO nations get sucked more directly into the conflict by accident or design. In interviews with senior American and European officials in recent days, there's a consensus on one point. Just as the last 2 weeks revealed that Russia's vaunted military faltered in its invasion plan, The next 2 or 3 may reveal whether Ukraine can survive as a state and negotiate the end of the war. So far, I think they're going to survive as a state. I have a hard time believing that. Based on the analysis I've seen. See, also they say, in private, officials express concern Mr. Putin might seek to take Moldova. I mean, at this point, it seems like they're having a hard enough time achieving anything close to their military goals in Ukraine. Our viewer, Carl Todad, thinks Putin is not going to negotiate. Arndt Ragnar Arntzen says we need to think about a backdoor for Putin. He will never give up and go on. We need to open a backdoor for the Russians. Will save thousands of lives. But Putin might feel that if he ends the war, then his rule might be threatened. Because it could seem like such a failure. Okay. Let me get caught up here. Ronnie says it has to be something Ukraine can live with. But just, again, big headline, I showed you that the analysis from the U.S. defense official. I showed you the Institute of the Study of War daily update. They both say Russia's they're not making much offensive progress at all. And as I showed you here, Institute for the Study of War said Russian forces may not be able to concentrate the combat power necessary to resume major offensive operations towards Kyiv within the week. So how long are the forces just going to sit out there? Okay, give me a shout if you have comments at Lookner on Twitter. Let's see here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any kind of stuff that came out the last few minutes. I check my Telegram channels too and see what they're reporting. Let me show you this. Where is this from? This is an article from Ukrainian Pravda. Ukrainian Pravda, this is a Ukrainian news outlet. Mariupol mayor's advisor says 20,000 civilians have died in the city. I don't know how many have died. I think the city officially says over 2,500 have. Advisor to the mayor of Mariupol. This is the city in the southeast of Ukraine which has been blockaded. For over a week they haven't had power, heat, no power, no heat, no water, food shortages. They're blockaded. No cell service, no internet. Advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Peter Andriy said the overall situation in the city is catastrophic. According to him, the number of victims of Russian shelling could approach 20,000. He says, we have data on dead civilians that do not correspond to reality because they are received from the police, coordinated with medical institutions. This is a small handful of people that we know about. Yesterday it was 1,800 small people. 4 days ago, we talked about the optimistic scenario, about 10,000 victims. But with increased intensity and with the cruelty that has increased many times over, we can say if the blockade ends now and we can at least start searching for these people, then by now the number of victims will be close to 20,000. But if this does not happen in the coming days, then this number will approach 350,000 because all those who do not have time to leave. Someone is buried where someone in the yards out in the streets. Due to the intensity of the shelling, people cannot even go outside to bury their loved ones. Municipal services do not work. The cemeteries on the territory controlled by the Russian army, death is everywhere you can see it. Near Berdyansk, he says, the Russians are blocking about 35 buses, 9 trucks with food, water, and medicines for Mariupol residents. He said bombardments continue in the city. He said at the time the blockade began, there were about 350,000 inhabitants in the city. People in the city live in basements, shelters. They are all overcrowded, of course. The conditions are inhuman. Without food, without water, without light, without heat. We dismantled the heating systems and heating mains. They drained water for them to drink. The last source of water stopped a few days ago. I know, by the way, I know when he says it's 20,000, it sounds crazy, but they haven't had water, electricity, phone service for days. Days and days. The centralized distribution of water became impossible due to constant shelling and bombing. Food. There was one working store where there were more or less stocks. It was purposely destroyed the day before yesterday. He said 80% of the housing stock in the city is unfit for habitation, of which at least 80% will never be restored. Jeez. He says, Mariupol has a special role in the last 8 years. It's the last largest city in the Donetsk, eastern Ukrainian region that did not accept those banana republics and did not accept Russian occupation. Russia has been occupying eastern Ukraine since 2014, but it had not occupied Mariupol. And for 8 years, it demonstrated what a city on the demarcation line is, 10 kilometers from the front lines, how it can be revived and become a European city. And now Russia wants to show what will happen if someone does not accept the Russian world and its conditions. There is nothing left to take, nothing to lead. There will soon be no people. Everything suggests that people were deliberately locked up in the city and destroyed. Well, that's very concerning. Look, we don't know how bad things are there, but I was reading you stories like a week ago with people saying, yeah, you can't even go outside there. You can't bury the dead. There's dead people in the streets, but no one can get to them because there's all this shelling going on. I'm gonna post this. This was an interview he did on the air of Present Time. All right, I got to summarize this. Advisor to Mayor of Mariupol, Here's the link. It's, and I know it sounds crazy. But we've been talking about this for days and days and days, how horrific the conditions are there. But it's under blockade. People haven't been able to get out. There's no cell service. There's no power. So we're not seeing like a lot of videos from there. There was one drone video I saw this morning. I'll show you. But I know it sounds like a huge number, but at the same time, they've been blockade. We've been hearing these reports for days and days and days. This is Petr. Let's hope it's an overestimate. Let's hope he's estimating too high. That's what he says. B.A. Jacobson says it's been over for, yes, this has been going on for over a week now. But I know specifically, probably for around a week, I've been reading you reports of how bad it was. I remember seeing reports last Wednesday that were saying that like people were fighting over food and stuff like that. That was last Wednesday. I was reading horrific reports last Wednesday on the air. Unbelievable. Well, let's hope it's an overestimate, but I think when I don't even know. I was going to say when people finally can go to the city, but maybe I don't know when this blockade is going to be lifted. Maybe Russia's going to keep blockading it until more and more people die and then just move their military in. I don't know. But again, it's been a terrible, it's not just, there's all this shelling that's been going on there. It's all the shelling plus the humanitarian situation. Caesar Day says a person can survive without water only about 3 days. Morgan Warren, that wasn't Russian Pravda. That was Ukrainian Pravda. This is not Russia's Pravda. This is a Ukrainian news outlet. It's not Russian-owned news. It's not state-owned propaganda. There's certainly a pro-Ukrainian outlet, but again, this is not the news outlet saying what they think. They're literally just telling you. They literally are telling you what the advisor to the mayor said on the air. So this is not, they're not saying this is what we think is happening. The story is just, here's what the advisor to the mayor said on the air. And that's what he said on the air. I don't think they're lying about what he said in the interview. Think of also people who might have been sick, people who might have been, older people. Think of all of people who weren't that healthy to begin with, who were vulnerable. Maybe people with medical needs, who they can't get their medicine, they can't get medical care. Here, this is from the video that came out. It's a typo. Christopher Miller, a gut-wrenching bird's-eye view of the hell that Russian forces have unleashed on Mariupol, where more than, I believe the official number of dead is over 2,500 now, I believe. That's the official number. But you heard the mayor's office said, well, that number is just coming from the police and from a small group of people who can investigate these things. And there's a lot of people out there who it's not safe to go out and, really investigate. There's no power, no heat, no running water. Food is running out. This has been the story for over a week now. Video shared by Ukrainian Interior Ministry. There's so much destruction there. I might be able to get a clearer video here. I don't know. This one's a little blurry. But you can see it's like all these huge apartment buildings are just destroyed. Just destruction. Let me show you. I think there was a more clear video posted that I retweeted last night. But we've been talking about that for a while. It's unthinkable. It's so horrific. Here it is. Is this more clear? This is the Rob Lee video. He posted a video. I think it's a little more clear. If you want to, you can go to Rob Lee's site or my site. I retweeted it. You can blow it up big on your monitor or whatever. See the building? It's just destroy. All these huge apartment built complexes are just destroyed. So I've been telling you for days. I was saying when stuff like videos and stuff finally come out of there, it's going to be so horrific. So horrific. The Chow says those don't look like military targets. Peace be with you says, so heartbreaking to see what Putin is doing to these peace-loving people in their homes and cities. George Marcos says, still can't be invaded. No, Russia hasn't been able to invade the big cities, even Mariupol. There's still forces guarding Mariupol, Ukrainian forces. All right, again, give me a shout on Twitter @Lookner. I'm just looking here. Just checking for some updates here. Was there a new drone thing? Let's see here. Intel Crab says, posted, Void told me about this. Intel Crab says a Russian UAV was shot down by Ukrainian air defense units after it briefly passed into Polish airspace. He says 24 TV. 24 TV cites a Telegram account linked to the Ukrainian armed forces. Have not found this original post yet. UAVs are prone to navigation failures, even if this incident is confirmed. I'm not sure much if anything changes. Statement originated here. Oh, they have a Ukrainian Air Force statement about it here. Armed Forces Ukraine. The Ukrainian Armed Forces posted on Facebook, they said the invaders, the Russian drone, first went into the territory of Poland, returned to our airspace, and was killed by us. The remains we're looking for. So I can't confirm that. That's what they posted this on their site. Ukrainian Armed Forces. Georgie Georgiev says, spoke an hour ago with my mates in Mariupol. Azov and Marines also are there, National Guard, there are guards there. My guy is pretty confident they will hold. My mates say Iskander missiles are intercepted easy with Stingers and other manpads. The real problem is Caliber missiles. It's hell for UA Army. They have no way to stop them. Thank you, Georgie, for the updates and for your support. My best to the people you know in Mariupol and anybody else who might be there, and anybody else who might be in Ukraine more generally. Thanks also Florian Meyer and Firestar 718 and Nicholas Hersant, and our members such as Colligan Crafts, Tim McMinn. And thank you, Kelly Gurney, Realtor, Yellowstone Yankee, who's also one of our mods. Thank you. Again, write to me on Twitter @Lookmore. I'm going to check some more of your messages here. Thank you, Barry Jett, as well. RLF Captures says, has there been an update today about the humanitarian aid that was headed to Mariupol? No. I showed you an article from a Ukrainian site that said the convoy hadn't gotten there yet. There's a convoy that's been trying to get to Mariupol for several days for the aid. I have not heard any reports that it's gotten there yet. I saw a report that said some vehicles made it out of Mariupol today. I posted about it. See if I can find it again. But it wasn't like a big evacuation, unfortunately. Can't find it now. Roland Oliphant. More than 160 cars carrying civilians left Mariupol. And yes, more than 160 cars carrying civilians left Mariupol around 1 p.m. local time and passed Berdyansk en route to Zaporizhia. The Mariupol City Council says silence on the green corridor being observed. That's some kind of good news. So I guess some cars made it out. I thought I posted about this. I'm going to check their Telegram, Mariupol City Council. Let's see. Where is, here they are. Here it is. Yeah, here's an update on the humanitarian caravan headed towards Mariupol. This is the Mariupol City Council telegram. Today, the humanitarian caravan remained in Berdyansk. Tomorrow morning, a new attempt by the convoy of humanitarian aid vehicles, which left Zaporizhia for Mariupol, still remains in the Berdyansk district. This is due to non-compliance with the regime of silence by Russian troops. Preliminarily, if a green corridor is opened tomorrow and there's a ceasefire, then the humanitarian caravan will continue its movement to Mariupol, where around 400,000 residents need help. Now, they also say stop fake, false information about the number of deaths in Mariupol is spread on the internet. There is different information about the number of deaths in Mariupol from the hostile actions of the Russian occupiers, from several hundred to tens of thousands of people. The official and confirmed information, which we mentioned, is that it's 2357 dead. All other data related to this is not true. Now, the article I showed you said, that was from Ukrainian Pravda. The article I showed you was an advisor to the mayor who said, look, I know the official number, but what he said is that the official number is not going to be the actual number because people really can't go out and investigate this. It's so dangerous to be out there, and it's only a small number of people who are actually investigating. So he said he believed that the actual number was closer to 20,000. But he did not say that was the official number, just to be clear. See, this is what the advisor said, mayor's advisor. He said, we have data on dead civilians that do not correspond to reality because that data is received from the police coordinated with medical institutions. This is a small handful of people that we know about. He says, due to the intensity of the shelling, people cannot even go outside to bury their loved ones. So that's why he's saying that he believes that the actual number of deaths is higher than the official number. Oh, and here's the thing about the vehicles that made it out, apparently. It is known that as of 1 p.m. today from Mariupol on the way to the city of Berdyansk managed to leave more than 160 private cars. Mariupol residents followed this route. As of now, it is known that Mariupol residents who drove their own cars, there is confirmation the silence regime is currently being observed. So certain residents made it out, but I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't believe there was a. I don't that there was a plan. There was no big evacuation, I think, planned for today. That I know of. Okay. So thanks for asking about that. Thor's Beard sent me this. I saw this earlier. This is the mayor of Ukraine. There's another an airstrike that hit Kyiv this morning. And I believe killed at least one person and destroyed one or more buses. This is from Klitschko, the mayor's account.
That's what the Russians' war against the civilians look like. Destroyed buildings, destroyed infrastructure. City bus just got hit by the rocket. Lives are getting lost. That's the war that Russia started. That's the city of Kyiv. And many cities in Ukraine were destroyed. Lives were taken. That's the truth. These images is the truth of Russian war against Ukraine. Putin's war against Ukraine. That's what it looks like.
There's another video of the actual hitting of the that missile, which apparently a missile which I posted earlier this morning. If I can find it for you. It's really scary. Here it is. From Aleph. Video of falling of the missile falling down in Kyiv. It's unbelievable. And then you can see in the pictures, you see the bus that Aleph posted. You can actually see that bus that the mayor was talking about. There's the bus right there. I don't know if that was a missile that was shot down. Headcrab says, "Is this a missile that was shot down and exploded?" Yeah, I don't know if this was a missile that was shot down or not. I believe somebody was killed in this. I'll have to look it up. Umat said they say one person was killed. I heard that earlier. I don't have, they might have it on their Telegram page. The Kyiv City Administration. I don't know if they have it on their Telegram page. Let's see here. No, I don't see it there. Then there was also a missile that appeared to fall down in Donetsk, which is a part of eastern Ukraine that Russia has been occupying for several years. And there was video suggesting that several people had gotten killed and injured. It wasn't clear if that missile had been shot down. It wasn't even clear who fired the missile. It looked like possibly a Ukrainian missile, but it's possible that it had gotten shot down, and that's why it landed there. So I don't know. I posted some stuff about this hours ago, and I haven't looked into it. So I know some people were trying to figure out what happened with that today. There were a bunch of questions about it. Russian media, pro-Russian media was saying, oh, it's definitely, an attack on that area. See, Kyle Glenn posted this earlier. Looks like the Tochka missile, this is in Donetsk, eastern Ukraine, may have been shot down by air defense and the damage casualties caused by shrapnel. I'm not seeing any huge craters, but I'm seeing lots of photos of missile wreckers. So I don't know. I don't know if it was shot down or not. And he said damage to the road here looks consistent with cluster munitions. So I've seen some people looking into that today, whether it was cluster munitions, whether it was shot down. There were people doing open source intelligence, OSINT, where they were trying to figure out what happened. But I don't know for a fact what happened. But there was video posted that appeared to show a number of people. I think the ones I saw, about 6-7 people dead and wounded, really bad. See, Elliot Higgins from Bellingcat posted this. I'm currently looking for images like this that show the impacts from cluster munitions from today's attack in Donetsk, if anyone has seen them. But I haven't heard anything conclusive about who fired it and was it shot down or not. I just don't know. But certainly it's bad if anyone was being killed. I mean, the video was really bad. Neil Broomley sent me this. Now I don't know if this is true. No, it's true that the Hong Kong markets went down. Alexei Sorokin said he was works at Kyiv Independent. Says Hong Kong markets plummet over fears China may provide military support to Russia. I don't know if that's the only reason why it went down. I saw some interesting reasoning. I mean, first of all, China's got a big COVID issue. There's that. It looks like a huge COVID wave is growing in China. Also, I saw an interesting theory that said people see what Russia has done, where companies have pulled out of Russia, and now Russia's threatening to nationalize, take over companies' facilities if the company pulls out of Russia, and it might make people skittish about investing in China. So I'll have to look up what I'll look up, say, a financial site and see what they have to say about this. Fund managers run away from China stocks even with 75% discount. Russia ties regulation. China's been really regulating their tech sector, and that scares investors. Russia ties regulation pose risk to owning Chinese shares. Investors are wary of buying even as valuations keep slumping. This is from Bloomberg. Fund managers are leery of buying Chinese stocks as the country's close ties to Russia, extreme COVID curbs, and lack of clarity on the end of regulatory crackdowns overwhelm the dip buying opportunity presented by the 75% plunge from their peak. So I don't think it's that this. I mean, this is Hong Kong is part of China. I don't know about the Hang Seng, but there's all these worries. It's not just the worry that it looks like there's other worries related to Chinese stocks other than that China's going to give weapons to Russia. Now the slump came after U.S. officials said Russia had asked China for military assistance. Traders worry that any sanctions against Beijing could worsen supply chain constraints and hit global growth. This analyst says it's concerns about Russian sanctions spilling over to China that's putting pressure on Chinese equities. Sentiment has been hurt by a COVID-induced lockdown in Shenzhen, China, a key tech hub. That is from Bloomberg. Yes, as David Hyland says, I've posted about this on Twitter, Hong Kong has a huge COVID outbreak, a very, very high number of deaths relative to the population in Hong Kong. That has been going on too. Excuse me. See, look at this. This is from South China Morning Post. They say Hong Kong, which I believe has some governmental ties. They say Hong Kong stock index plunges to 6-year low as bad news from Ukraine war to China's worsening COVID-19 outbreaks trigger tech rally. The Hang Seng Tech Index tumbled by 11%, its steepest daily loss since its creation in July 2020. See, this analyst group said the worsening COVID outbreak will hurt service industries and dent consumer confidence in the short term. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm not going to get really into it now. I've been posting about it, but in China, you have these cities. A number of cities are building these huge hospitals and huge quarantine facilities, and they're building them in like 3 days or 7 days, and so they're thinking this is going to be a really big wave there because you can see them actually doing this emergency building of facilities. Okay, a quick thank you to Peace Be With You and Florian Meyer. Thank you, Florian. And Paul W. And Georgy Georgiev. He says he believes there are some troops in Mariupol who have been sworn an oath to die in Mariupol. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that, obviously. Thank you, Georgie. Yeah, Paul W. and a couple people have asked about the Israel cyber attacks. It's not really related to what we're talking about here on this. There were these cyber attacks today on Israel government sites. I believe the chief suspect was Iran, and the government said that they had gotten the sites to start working again. Cyber Israel. In the past few hours, a DDoS attack against a communications provider was identified. As a result, access to several websites, among them government sites, was denied for a short time. As of now, all the websites have returned to normal activity. That's from Cyber Israel. But again, from what I was hearing from Israeli media, the suspect was not Russia, it was Iran. Reuters, Israel says government was hit by cyber attack. The communications ministry did not accuse any group of carrying it out. In some cases, the Israel National Cyber Directorate, which oversees cyber defenses, in a report published last year, said it had witnessed a dramatic increase in the scale and quality of cyber attacks worldwide and in Israel. In some cases, officials have pointed a finger at Iran or Iranian-backed groups. So I haven't seen any official assessment of blame. See, it says here, Jerusalem Post, cyber attacks against Israeli government websites are possibly retaliation for an alleged failed Mossad operation against Iran. So I'm not going to get all into that now. Seems a bit tangential. Let me thank our mods really quick. They are amazing. Really appreciate it. We had Linda Belk before in Twitter. Lexa Fulmer and Cynthia Moon on YouTube moderating. C. Michelle Sparks. Also, let's see here. Hang on a second here. Margaret Riley. Thank you, Amy Hollows, for the Facebook stars. Thank you, Amy. Margaret's over there moderating. Thank you, Margaret. Guessing we have other Facebook moderators. I might be missing them. Excuse me. Also, our Twitch moderators. Yeah, Russia's stock market's closed all week. Still closed. It'll be the third straight week. Daily Disclosure, Duxor, Idaho Star, Mark and NC, Muse, Nightbot, and Papa Bear, all moderating over there on Twitch. Thank you. Ben Hodges posted this. He is a former commanding general in U.S. Army Europe. He says he thinks Russian forces will culminate within the next 10 days if we maintain pressure on them. They have manpower problems and ammo shortages. Expand support to Ukraine to destroy Russian artillery rockets and cruise missiles. Now is the time to keep our foot on the gas. He posted that this morning. Oh, I wanted to show you this as well. This was an article. We read an article from The Guardian yesterday where the Guardian reporter who was in Ukraine had talked to some Ukrainians who had claimed that Russian forces, evading Russian forces, had killed some Ukrainians and looted. I believe looted. Definitely killed. Was definitely killed, but also had misbehaved in other ways. Well, this is a story that came out in the Wall Street Journal today. Russian forces kill civilians, loot for supplies in occupied Ukraine, residents say. Russian forces are killing civilians and looting stores and homes across occupied parts of southern Ukraine, residents said. This is by Yaroslav Trofimov, who I think is in the area. So he says residents are saying that Russian forces are killing civilians and looting stores and homes across occupied parts of southern Ukraine, as Moscow arrested local leaders and sought to replace them with pro-Russian collaborators. People arriving here, he's in Zaporizhia. People arriving in Zaporizhia from Russian-held areas over the weekend described hungry and undisciplined Russian troops shooting unarmed villagers, breaking into supermarkets and shops, and raiding homes in search of food and valuables as their own supply lines have failed. They just brazenly come in without any shame and take whatever they want, said a 64-year-old woman who came to Zaporizhia from the small village of Mern after days hiding in the cellar with her daughter and grandson, as Russian troops went door to door ransacking houses. Two neighbors who were driving a car with a Ukrainian flag were shot and killed by a Russian patrol last week, she said. It's still there on the roadside and their bodies are still inside, she said. Anyways, if you want to read more of this, you can go to Wall Street Journal. Hang on one second here. That's quite a quote. Again, the quote is, people arriving in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, from Russian-held areas over the weekend described hungry and undisciplined Russian troops shooting unarmed villages, breaking into supermarkets and shops, and raiding homes in search of food and valuables as their own supply lines have failed. I'm not surprised that's happening, the looting and stuff and the stealing if they don't have food. Certainly it's terrible and should not be happening, but I'm not surprised if it's happening. Thanks to our new members, by the way, Carms and Heilke Van Houten, and to all of our YouTube members. Thank you, RB. We talked about the Institute of Study of War update earlier, so you can rewind the broadcast. We spent a little time talking about that, RB. And I posted something about it on Twitter. A quick thank you also to Duster Singer. Hey, that's very kind of you, Duster Singer. Duster is watching over there on Facebook. Thank you. And I also need to thank the people for giving the Facebook stars. But we're hearing multiple reports like that, like the one I just told you. Thanks for the Facebook stars: Jeremiah Brown, Rick Toner, Tanya Duke, Anthony Caligari, Amy Hollows, Pam Georgia Carver, Earl Harris, Brad Nicodemus, Todd Taylor, Sincere Solo, Rita Ulasi, Tops Nicole, Laura Sluice, Russell Spencer, Jocelyn Mealy, Diane Allworth, Tracy Williams, and Chelsea Eberhardt. All right, hang on one moment here. See, this is interesting. Look what Mark Hertling said. Kyiv Independent said retired U.S. Army general believes Russia will exhaust ability to fight within 10 days. Ben Hodges, former commander of the U.S. Army in Europe, told CBS News that Russia is running out of time, ammunition, and manpower as a quick operation turned into a war of attrition. And then Mark Hertling, who's a former U.S. general, says, well, that's at least 2 former U.S. Army Europe generals who have agreed on this for a while. So we were talking about this earlier. I told you how a senior defense official told reporters today that the Russian offensive has largely stalled out, that there had not been much movement in the last day from Russian forces. I showed you the Institute of Study of War report that said that too, that Russia had not attempted any major attacks in the last day, and things were largely stalling in terms of their making progress. And what we've been talking about is, how long can those forces just stay out there? They've been there for weeks or longer. Some forces were in the field before. They didn't expect probably to go in for this long. A lot of them apparently most of them probably didn't even expect to be fighting. So how long are they going to be able to stay out in the field?
Getting outdoors.
Between morale, between losing, between their supply lines being attacked? So it's interesting to see a couple of generals saying that. Remember, I showed you this before. Where's the thing I showed you before? Right here. Jeff Selden. Not a lot of specific changes or progress. Almost all of Russia's advances remain stalled, says senior U.S. official. Russian forces still about 15 kilometers from Kyiv city center, slowly trying to flow in forces behind advanced elements. Convoy still assessed to be stuck. Excuse me. So I just wonder how long they can stay out there for. Thank you, Suzanne, by the way. Thanks, Suzanne. Give me one moment here. Checking some of your messages too. One of our viewers mentioned this. Sorry. Who sent me this? I think it was like LA Lights or something sent me this. LA something or other sent me this. I'm just LA Lights. I want to post on this. Hang on. New lockdown. Langfang City, China. Population 1.1 million. Placed under lockdown. There it is from Global Times. Langfang. Oops. Langfang City, China. Population 1.1 million, placed under lockdown. Okay. There it is. Global Times. Neighboring Beijing, Langfang City in North China's Hebei province is placed under a citywide lockdown starting from Tuesday, with all the residents being required to go through quarantine at home. Another city. I'm telling you, I said it before, the outbreak in China is getting really big, very concerning. And they're building new hospitals and new quarantine centers. That's a different topic, but just something I want to mention. No, it's Omicron. Omicron variant. Sorry, just checking some of the messages here. People send me a lot of messages, so. Some of the stuff is stuff we've already covered. Bigawoot Bruno says, do you think the cyber attack on Israel is related to the Ukraine situation? No. We talked about that earlier, but seems to be a thing with Iran. That's what it's looking like. The China situation is going to be a much bigger deal. It's not really being talked about in the news much, but it will be. I've been posting about it for a couple days ago, but it's going to be a huge, huge deal. And it could have huge economic effects around the world if a lot of China just starts shutting down. All right, let me check. I had some things I wanted to mention here. Oh, this was a whole other story we didn't talk about. I don't know if you saw this. Russian prosecutors warn Western companies of arrests and asset seizures. So we've already heard warnings that Russia could nationalize companies that leave Russia. So, for example, McDonald's leaves Russia, which they have, or stops operating in Russia. Russia will could just take over all the restaurants. Say it's ours now, take over factories, whatever else, for businesses that leave. But look, McDonald's, Coke, Procter & Gamble, and IBM among those warned that leaders of the companies could be arrested, trademarks seized. This is from Wall Street Journal. Russian prosecutors have issued warnings to Western companies in Russia, threatening to arrest corporate leaders there who criticize the government, or to seize assets of companies that withdraw from the country, according to people familiar with the matter. Prosecutors delivered the warnings in the past week to companies including Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, blah, 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 blah. The calls, letters, and visits included threats to sue the companies and seize assets, including trademarks. So if Russia seized McDonald's trademark, they could just open up their own McDonald's restaurants using the McDonald's logo and all the branding and everything. President Putin last week expressed support for a law to nationalize assets of foreign companies that leave his country over the invasion of Ukraine. The prosecutors' warnings were directed at companies across sectors, including technology, food, apparel, and banking. The warnings have prompted at least one of the targeted companies to limit communications between its Russian business and the rest of the company out of concern that emails or text messages among colleagues may be intercepted, some of the people said. Other companies have moved to transfer executives out of Russia. Then it says here, hang on. Late last night, Late last night, after the online publication of this article, Russia's embassy in Washington retweeted it, stamped it with a red fake news. Sorry, Russia's embassy in Washington retweeted the article, stamped with a red fake news label. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is monitoring reports that the Russian government may seize assets of large Western companies. So, something to keep an eye on. I don't think this kind of stuff is going to, if there is some sort of hopefully ceasefire at the end of this, I don't think this kind of stuff is going to encourage these companies to go back there and want to spend lots of money in Russia. If the Putin regime is still there, even if the war ends, I think companies are going to be very hesitant because they look at the kind of stuff that's happening and say, they'll probably say, why do we want to dump all this money in there and invest and build stuff if there's a risk that this is going to happen? Julio Cesar thinks a new North Korea is coming soon. I mean, if they don't have a big change in government, I would think that the effect on investment could go on for years and years and years. People be scared to invest. Max Smith thinks the threat of seizure will keep Fortune 1,000 firms out of Russia. Well, this looks like an interesting article. There's another article I want to talk about. I just saw it. But, before we talk about it, we'll talk about it in a second. I just need 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. I'm coming right back. We'll continue our live coverage in 2 minutes.
What's going on, everybody? I am just finishing up some minor things. Yeah, there's all kinds of new news out today. And I don't think it's good. Got a lot to show you guys. A lot of it doesn't make sense, but that's been the past, what, 2 weeks? But yeah, I'll be on in just a minute. I'm just taking some notes and then just editing some page detail just to make sure everybody is getting reached. Let's see here. That doesn't make any sense. Alright, I'm trying to figure out how to... Ah, man, I swear Facebook's so confusing sometimes. So confusing. Yeah, but make sure you like, share, follow. Definitely like the page. We're going to get started here in a minute. Just taking some notes. We got to update some of these feeds real quick. And then we'll get it started. But definitely definitely crazy stuff. But I'll be on in 1 minute.
Space in Amsterdam, Stin Mitzer has looked at hundreds of verified photographs of destroyed Russian vehicles. He thinks that far from acting as protection, the cages have done nothing save add weight, make tanks easier to spot, and perhaps give a false and dangerous sense of security to the crew inside. Superficially, they have been mockingly dubbed by Western analysts as emotional support armor or cope cages. Superficially, they're an example of what in military circles is known as field expedient armor. In other words, stuff added to the vehicles after they've entered service. The new cages appear to be a variant of so-called slat or bar armor. Such armor can provide effective lightweight protection if used correctly. But in this case, that seems not to have happened. They might thus be seen as symbols of Russia's inadequate preparation for the campaign, as pertinent as its failures to neutralize Ukraine's air defenses or to shoot down the country's drones. One of the principal threats to armored vehicles are high explosive anti-tank weapons. The warheads are shaped charges, hollow cones of explosive lined with metal. When the explosive detonates, it blasts the metal lining into a narrow, high-speed jet that's able to punch through thick steel. Okay, those include javelins as well, and NLAWs. Heat warheads may be countered by what is known as explosive reactive armor. When that is hit, a sheet of explosive sandwiched inside it blows up and disrupts an incoming warhead. Slat and bar add-on armors are a lighter and cheaper way to counter RPGs. Even if used correctly, they are literally hit or miss protection. The spacing of the bars or slat is crucial. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Russia has been fitting slat armor to vehicles since 2016, but the design of the new cages, seemingly improvised from locally available materials, is baffling. The cages appear to be oriented in a way that protects only against attacks from above. In principle, that might help protect against javelins, which have a top attack mode in which they first veer upwards and then dive to punch through a tank's thin top armor. But as Nick Reynolds, an expert at RUSI, says, even if the cage sets off a javelin's precursor warhead, the main charge is still more than powerful enough to punch through the top armor and destroy the tank. Another idea is that the cages are a response to the events in the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan in 2020, in which large numbers of tanks were destroyed from above. Dr. Cranny Evans does not think that these cages would solve that problem. A third possibility is that the cages are in fact meant as protection against RPGs. Even if that is true, it comes at a price. This expert says the cages limit the ability of the machine gun mounted on the top of the turret to swing upwards to engage enemies firing down on the vehicle.
All right, we're gonna get this kicked off here to make sure the sound quality is good, which I think it is. I think it's all right. We do got a new moderator. His name's Joshua. He'll be hanging out with us on and off. So we're going to kick things off with the live map of Ukraine, and I think you guys were here last night when we seen what the map looked like before. So, sorry, I'm just trying to find some new feeds here. But anyhow, I'll show you guys the map. So this is the new updated map in Ukraine. I know last night you guys seen a lot more blue. I've seen a lot more blue last night. I don't know. I mean, this seems very, very sad. An hour ago, Villa Teskra. Red alert, aerial threat, siren sounding, take cover now. President Zelensky, an hour ago, said that Russia suffered more losses during the war in Ukraine than during the two wars in Chechnya. But I mean, this just looks so far. It just looks way worse than it was last night. Hey, Misty. Let me welcome everyone in here. We got Misty, Nicole, hello. Cremo. We got Pretty Gabriella. Hello, everyone. I want to give a testimony about. Let me take care of that. I apologize, everyone. I missed that. Where is it at? Why do I? Okay. I mean, the whole HIV thing, I'm sorry, but this is, but no, this map looks a lot worse compared to yesterday. I know last night we talked about Syria, we talked about Taiwan, and it just seems like Russia's just getting more and more active. So it's outside of Sumy. Russian army does not stop trying to surround Sumy and conducts hostilities in the area of Soboltov, Lazum, pretty much all of them over there. In order to strengthen groups in the areas of Sumy, Otkara, Kharkiv, and Izum regroups troops and consolidates on the captured borders. I mean, what do you guys think? I know you guys seen, I think majority of you guys seen the map last night. And it didn't even come close to looking like this. Let me know if the image looks alright too. Forgot to turn on my camera. You guys want the camera on or off? Let's see here. I don't know. I don't. This map makes me worried. Really worried. But there's just no help for Ukraine at all. So it's definitely not looking good in Ukraine. Let's check these blue vehicles down here. Let's see. About 160 private vehicles were able to leave Mariupol towards Berdansk City Council. So, Nova Odessa, Mykolaiv is fully controlled by Ukrainian army. Go ahead and check that out.
Так, ще раз всім бажаю здоров'я. Стою перед Новою Одесою. Траса від Миколаєва до Нової Одеси повністю під контролем Збройних сил України. Проїзд забезпечений безпечно, але звертаю вашу увагу, що на 196-му кілометрі перед Новою Одесою лежать дерева на проїзній частині, поки що їх ніхто не прибрав. Це для забезпечення безпеки виставила тероборона. Тому звертаємо увагу і не перевищуємо швидкість, якщо їдемо по трасі. Бачите, ззаді, от, курган перед Новою Одесою, тому безпека забезпечена.
Sorry about the echo there. Where is it coming from? How's it going, Linda? All right, that should be good. Should be good. Let's see. Let me check the settings on this one as well. Properties. Rushidin, appreciate the like. Misty Kyle, appreciate the like. Let's see here. I'm sorry, guys. It always seems like there's something. Always something. Okay. That should take care of that. So my audio is picking up through my camera and through my mic at the same time. Let's see here. All right, that's better. All right. That's better. Alright, so I think you guys can all see the map here. Let me make this bigger for everyone. Man, I tell you, it's always the little things. Always the little things. Alright, now I should be able to make it bigger. Alright, so Ukraine doesn't look good. I know you guys probably heard the story of not story, but the news of that attack close to the Polish border. That is not good in any means. Alright. Just trying to find some more feeds here. Let's see here. I swear it's getting harder and harder to find any feeds at all. But how's everyone's night going so far? We can start off with that. Hope everyone's night is fantastic. Hope it's fantastic like always. Yeah, I won't stay on here long. I'll go ahead and update everything that's currently going on. Man, I always have to change all this stuff too. It's like nothing never stays the same, ever. Promise. All right. All right, we should be good now. Is the audio and everything all right? Joshua, are you in here? Any mods in here? Hopefully you guys can all hear me. Okay. I have to keep that fan running on my computer because it pretty much wants to catch fire all the time. Yeah, I'm not finding any other feeds. Okay. All right, well, we'll just move on. So, of course, the Ukraine map is not looking good if you're just hopping in here. Compared to last night, there's a lot less blue than last night. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of reports. 11 hours ago, so Road Nova Odessa, Mykolaiv is fully controlled by the Ukrainian army. So this is controlled by the Ukrainian army. The only problem I see is that's a lot of forces. I swear it's almost like it
quadrupled overnight. The train's missing. So we seen a train here last night. We looked up. Danny, subscriber, it's like the armored train, full of tanks, logistics trucks, fuel tankers, and it was on its way from this general area on its way to Ukraine. Arrival, I'm not sure when the arrival is going to be. But in my honest opinion, I believe that it's sad, but I think Russia is going to, they're not going to stop, and I think they'll probably take Ukraine. And the reasoning behind that is, check on the next one here. Syria. And a lot of people are like, well, he's getting off topic. Well, we talked about it last night. Was Assad, Syria? They said that they will join Ukraine or Russia. Sorry, they will join Russia in the attack on Ukraine. And that is Assad in Syria. How old is that? This is 3 days ago. So on that announcement, in the same day, a squadron of commercial flights are on its way to Damascus. There's no real tie or connection, but the only thing, I mean, common sense maybe, but that would make me think that they're using Russian commercial aircraft to pick up the volunteers, I guess you would say. And that announcement came from here. 3 days ago, the Russian Zvezda channel broadcast a video clip that says that the preparations of the Assad government's army to move and fight alongside the Russian army in Ukraine. I mean, it's bad news for Ukraine. You know, Ukraine can't get help as it is, but Russia is getting volunteers. And I'm not sure what the size is, so I didn't check that. Let's see how big the Assad. Let's see here. It's 1965. Oh, so, wow. So, with headquarters in Damascus, the Syrian military consists of air, ground, and naval forces. Active personnel were estimated as 295,000, and that was in 2011, with an additional 314,000 reserves. Paramilitary forces were estimated at 108,000 in 2011. Estimates of the declining size of the armed forces over time include 141,400 as June 2019. 50% shrinkage, according to sources. In 2011, the majority of the Syrian military were Sunni, but most of the military leadership. So finish it. So they're a decent size. That's a lot of bodies. They have air and naval. Last time I checked that the only country that Turkey has blockade was Russia. Russia's not allowed to go through Istanbul in Turkey to get to the Black Sea. I figured they'd have like a snapshot. So they're willing to go fight with Russia in Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands. Of course, they won't send all of them. They got to leave some here. And I would say this just makes sense to me. Same day as the announcement, Russian Special Flight Squadron Tu-154 en route to Damascus. Squadron, there's not a set number to a squadron. It's just, it can be any number. But it's definitely more than one. And it's a commercial flight. Tu-154. So, it's a commercial liner. How many? I don't know. We can look up Flight Tracker to check it out. We touched on that yesterday. So, the new update here is 3 hours ago, the Russian warplanes launched a missile that exploded in the air in the sky of the village of Bazibor in the southern countryside of Ledib. I guess that sounds right, Ledib. I want to make sure everybody's leaving. That'd be really crappy if nobody could hear me. Okay. Yeah, that was really annoying. So I don't know. I just can't wrap my head around it. It's just crazy. Russia can get as many reinforcements as they can possibly get their hands on, and Ukraine's stuck. And then Russia gets mad at us when we're trying to give Ukraine weapons. I guess it is what it is. We'll watch a video of that. So, not only is Russia active in Ukraine, but they're also active in Syria, possibly, unofficially, picking up volunteers in Syria to go fight in Ukraine. So, we'll watch this. Is that a video? That's great. So Russia's active in Ukraine. They're active in Syria. Turkey is part of NATO. They joined NATO in 1952. There's still ongoing. This was 8 hours ago. Turkish troops conducted the 93rd Joint Patrol in the western countryside of Kobani. So that's just. Why am I still hearing this? Okay, Missy says she can hear you. Missy says she has a cold. I believe. Sorry about that. Closed out of it and it's still playing. Didn't realize my chat. Okay, I was looking at the wrong chat, everyone. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at the wrong chat. My chat over here is not updated. Last chat I have is Nicole. So let me get caught up on chat here. Richard said, I believe Putin has flipped the switch and released real military now. I agree. I really agree. Because if you guys were here last night, you guys seen the map. There wasn't that many. There wasn't that much red. And now, I mean, look at that. That is terrible. And there's people that believe as well as that. I mean, I don't know how I feel about it, but they believe that Putin's not going to stop. He's not going to stop with Ukraine. Everybody portrays Russia as weak. Misty said that I agree. I think people are so deceived about him. I agree with that as well. Because you got to think with all this, it seemed like it was a rough start for Russia. With their convoys getting blown up and, just all kinds of stuff. Helicopters, jets getting shot down. I think it was in the thousands of Russian military being killed in action. But I just think Putin, he can really push it if he wants to. Why didn't he do that the first time? I don't know. 11 hours ago, marking of a missile shot down today over Donetsk. Yeah, sorry, Donetsk. 11 hours ago, Russia is testing NATO red lines in its war against Ukraine. Lithuanian defense minister. I'm not going to try to say that one. So, you guys seen the reports, you guys seen the video that I didn't see that report. So that missile launch that they did yesterday was in this area here, 10 miles from the Polish border. All right, so it's just not looking good for Ukraine. And nobody knows how much Navy Russia has out here in the Black Sea. One ship did pull up last night that was out here, that was reported, and it was a beach landing craft. All right, we'll just pop over to Syria. But yes, Syria is going to join Russia in the fight. 4 hours ago, 6 hours ago. Well, here's an announcement 6 hours ago. The commander of the Christian NDF in Hama announces his readiness to go fight in Ukraine when Russia will order it. Nabil al-Dahala has personal ties with Russian generals in Kyiv Air Base, which is up here. 7 hours ago, Russian Air Force Su-34 was spotted today over Greater Idlib, admits second day of intense aerial activities in northwest Syria. I mean, Russia's busy. So with this flight here, that was 3 days ago. They were on their way to Damascus. Tu-154s. This is Flight Radar 24. Anyone can look it up and check it out. Let's see here. I got a message. Is the feed going in and out, guys? So there's a official link right there. My moderator Joshua said I have an echo. I'm telling you, that's the worst thing about all this. Is sound. What's being captured? What's being released? Let's see, device, okay. Capture audio only. Is there any echo now? Test. What about now? All right. I'm sorry, guys. This is crazy. So everybody left. They're like, whoa. Test. What about now? Test. What? What is going on? You're in a cave now. Why is it doing this? Let's see here. Audio output capture. Maybe that was it. I'll just I wonder if this will see if this fixes it. Yeah, I really apologize, everyone. I wonder if this will. I wonder now. What a headache. I wonder. Test. Okay, I think it's fixed. I don't know what happened. That's just crazy. That is absolutely insane. Everybody left too. They got tired of it. That's embarrassing. I'm supposed to be a professional over here. Now they're gonna mess all the goods. Operator error. You should see the settings in this thing. I'll just show you. Like, you got all these different sound settings. This is my mic right here. You got Lviv, you got all these different. I shut them all off just to figure out where they're going and deleted a bunch of them. I mean, I can. But yeah, that was a headache. Okay, everybody's sounds back. Everybody left. Not everybody. The troops stayed. So where were we? TU-154. Just wanted to check on these planes, which I imagine supposed to land in Damascus 3 days ago. That's not it. I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing anything that's kind of out of the ordinary. What's the most top tracked one right now? It says it's Dubai. I think Ukraine's still pretty quiet for aircraft. Let's double check in here. Alright, back to the map. If you restart the feed, anyone who follows will get a notification. You know what? Let me do that. Let me restart the stream real fast. That's what we'll do. That's a good idea. Alright, I'll restart the stream. You guys will get the notification. Let's try to do this the right way. Alright, see you guys in a minute.